Welcome to the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show with Corey and Justin. Here they are, the Fourth and Long Fantasy Brothers.
Welcome to episode 27 of the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody, on this special Thanksgiving episode. My name is Corey, and I'm here with my actual brother, Justin.
Hello, this is Justin.
It's episode 27 coming in fast, and the fantasy football playoffs are right around the corner. Justin, let's get things started with some injury quick hits, and let's talk about what has to be the biggest blow from this past week, losing a young, talented quarterback, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Joe Burrow had a significant knee injury suffered on Sunday. ACL, MCL, PCL, and multiple ligaments were injured. Now, the thing here is that when you're dealing with multiple ligament injuries, it typically requires a longer rehab. They're saying that they're going to be delaying his surgery until probably closer to the new year to allow the MCL to heal, which is typically common. It's extremely unlikely that Burrow is going to be ready for week one of the 2021 season. Man, what a blow to this offense as a whole. You feel for the young quarterback. He was on pace to break a bunch of rookie record passing-wise. It's really terrible for Joe Burrow. Just hope that he heals up well and that he can get ready for next season.
Justin, what about another young quarterback? Do we have to be worried about Kyler Murray?
Not concerned about Kyler Murray. It was a sprained AC joint, they're saying, that he suffered on Thursday Night Football this past week. I think he should be good to go week 12.
Justin, it hasn't been fun owning Julio Jones this year. What's going on with him?
Oh, man, another week, another Julio Jones injury, another strained hammy for Julio. Saying he's a game-time decision for week 12. I doubt he plays week 12.
Justin, it was really scary when Rex Burkhead went down. He was garnering a little bit of flex appeal, but I think it was bad, and I think we might not see him again this year, huh?
Yeah, this Patriot backfield was kind of turning into a two-man committee with both Damian Harris working the early downs and then Rex Burkhead working kind of the third down role. Torn ACL for Burkhead. He's going to be out for the year. James White should fill in his role, but I'm not necessarily running to pick him up on the wire this week.
And Justin, here comes Sony Michel, too, just to ruin your Cheerios when you're ready for a nice, healthy breakfast. But we've got to go back, and we've got to think about a couple of our last 2 weeks' future predictions, because the Chiefs were on bye, and we were talking about the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. Justin, what have you seen, and especially over this past weekend, with the CEH Le'Veon Bell split?
Yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked pretty good here on Sunday Night Football. He had 2 touchdowns. Bell also had a touchdown as well, but seems like this backfield's starting to short itself out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks like the clear back to own here for Kansas City, with Bell being more of a back that's going to spell him for a series or two here every once in a while. I still stand by my comments, though. I think CEH is more of an RB2, low-end RB2 at this point, with upside, obviously, given the offense he plays in. Bell at this point, though, is a desperation flex play for me.
Justin, TYREEK Hill was another one that we talked about, and I told you this guy's gearing up for a really big second half, and he did not disappoint coming off the bye. Again, not a ton of yardage, but he did have a really nice touchdown in the beginning of the game and then was used quite often. Basically, the defense that they faced really didn't allow for a lot of over-the-top shots, but it did allow for some intermediate routes, and TYREEK Hill can be dangerous there too. Looks like he's primed for a big second half, isn't he?
Yeah, man, he is a TD machine this year. I think he's got 10 so far right now. I mean, he's going crazy this year, 2020.
So, Justin, last week we wanted to focus on 2 different things. We want to focus on the Saints offense and Russell Wilson. What did you learn from watching the Saints offense under Taysom Hill?
Yeah, it looked a little different, huh? Didn't it, with Taysom Hill under center? You're typically used to seeing Drew Brees out there, and Taysom Hill's just a different quarterback, right? I mean, he's not known for being that precision passer that Drew Brees is. He has that additional element to his game where he can run the ball. He had 2 rushing touchdowns this past week. Michael Thomas was pretty good this past week, over 100 yards. Jared Cook really wasn't used all that much. And we'll talk a little bit more about Kamara later on in the show.
Yeah, that's right, Justin. And I got to say, learning from what I saw with Russell Wilson, it's that he still got it. And I said he hadn't lost it. And you know what? This week he was a little more conservative, and I don't hate it because he wasn't, hanging his team out to dry. I think Wilson still has a really, really high ceiling. This was kind of more of what you would expect his floor to be. Still a really productive fantasy week for him, though, right?
Yeah, he's got a couple good matchups coming up as well. I think he'll have, some of those elite performances here as we get closer and closer to the playoffs for fantasy football.
That's it, Justin. So we've just recapped the past 2 weeks and all the things we've been looking forward to, and stuff is really shaping up and just in time for that fantasy football playoff feel that we're all getting ready for. Well, all right then, Justin, it's about time. Let's get to it.
On today's show,
All right, Justin, we'll continue our weekly format for you this week. Today, Justin and I will discuss a past, a present, and a future topic as we reflect on Week 11 and get you prepared for your Week 12 matchups. Justin, why don't you get things started in the very complicated but very, very fantasy relevant Pittsburgh wide receiver situation?
Yeah, Corey, I wanted to talk about the two young wideouts on the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chase Claypool and Dionte Johnson. Man, is this the best young duo of wideouts in the NFL? I think so. Let's talk about Dionte Johnson first. Now, in the 7 fully completed games this year, he's averaging 18 fantasy points per game, which would make him the wide receiver 9 or on a points per game basis. His 11 targets per game would rank second most behind Devontae Adams. When this guy's healthy, Ben Roethlisberger looks his way, man. It's pretty encouraging if you own Dionte Johnson if he's healthy. Additionally, since last season, Dionte has had the second most forced missed tackles among wide receivers. This dude looks like a star in the making. Now, Chase Claypool. Now, this guy's no slouch either. He's the only wide receiver since the merger with 10-plus touchdowns in his first 10 career games. He looks like the modern-day souped-up version of Martavis Bryant. This guy is special. Now, this Steelers offense is humming, and these guys show no signs of slowing down, man. They're both, in my mind, top 20 dynasty wide receivers, maybe even top 15.
Justin, if only there was someone out there who was telling you that Dionte Johnson was a sleeper this year. Oh, wait, that was me. It's a bright young future in Pittsburgh. I guess the only thing that I'm really hesitating on and gives me pause is we're not sure of what Big Ben's future looks like in Pittsburgh. I think that's something to definitely pay attention to because we've seen what bad quarterbacks can do to awesome wide receivers. These guys are way too talented, though, at this point to ignore. Definitely one of the best, if not the best, young duos in the NFL at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, they're super talented, man. I mean, when I watch them play, I see a lot of, the modern day Antonio Brown, sort of Martavis Bryant comparisons between the two of them. They are both uber talented. They get a lot of looks from Ben Roethlisberger and, Claypool especially, man, he scores touchdowns. He knows how to score.
Justin, speaking of going back in time and reflecting on some nice situations, let me gush a little bit about a guy that I have loved for a long, long time, and that is currently Atlanta's running back, Mr. Todd Gurley. Now, it has been fun, Gurley. It has been a ride with your touchdowns this year and that RB1 production. But it's time. Now, before I'm called a hater on Todd Gurley, Justin, I have been a Gurley lover. But while a productive fantasy season has been going on, and I have been reaping the benefits personally because, as a reminder to everyone, I had Gurley ranked 7th. That's right, 7th, top 10 in my preseason rankings, which looks like a halfway decent call so far. I'm selling all over the place, Justin. Now, it's easy to pile on now, especially after an abysmal performance this past week, but take note of where Gurley's production is coming from. It's all touchdowns. The yardage production is kind of yucky, and there's only so many times we can blame the offensive line or the scheme, et cetera, et cetera. The days of Gurley being a running back beast are gone. For those watching and looking at the tape, he's a power back. You can't watch this film and tell me you don't see anything more than that. He's a good power back. I'll give you that. But a power back, and that's pretty much it these days. He's not a receiving back. He's not as versatile and as shifty as he used to be. He's essentially a ground and pound guy. So what's my advice here, Justin? I'm saying selling. Shed a tear when you do, especially remember the good old days. Play It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday by Boyz II Men and get out of this situation if you can, Justin.
Yeah, it's about time, right? I mean, every running back hits that cliff, and we might be seeing that cliff here for Todd Gurley. Corey, when you and I watch Falcons games, man, we talk and we're like, where's Gurley? Why is he not out there? You see Brian Hill out there all the time. It just doesn't seem like Gurley has that extra spark that he once had with the Rams, and I agree, man. I think it's time to sell Todd Gurley, see what you can get for him. He's relying too much on touchdowns. It's past his prime, past his expiration date.
Justin, he's not the all-purpose back that he used to be. He's not the fantasy elite weapon he used to be. He's definitely made his owners happy so far this year, but it's been a bit of a mirage to me, and I'm thinking you do need to get rid of him. If you do get rid of him, Justin, though, I think it's time to consider, all right, well, what do you do in place of that? And I think there is an intriguing option out there on the waiver wire this week. Who we talking about as our potential waiver wire ad? Someone who you might be down on, but I might be up on.
Yeah, Corey, we wanted to talk about running back Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, we just got word that the Ravens-Steelers game is going to be moved from Thursday night on Thanksgiving to actually Sunday now, given the COVID outbreak that's going on here with the Ravens. It's crazy. Just as J.K. Dobbins emerged in Week 11, both him and Mark Ingram have tested positive for COVID-19. And are reportedly still unlikely to play, even with the game moving from Thursday to Sunday. Now, obviously, we're going to have to take it day by day. But given all of that, are you hopping on the Gus bus? Because I don't think I am. And I think if you decide to pick up Gus and start him on Sunday in Pittsburgh, I think you might be disappointed, man. Let's talk about Pittsburgh for a second, right? They're allowing the 7th fewest rushing yards allowed. They're tied for the fewest rushing touchdowns allowed and are allowing the 2nd fewest average points to the running back position. That's not great, man. Not a great matchup. Most people will say to go start Gus on Sunday night, and I don't know if that's the right call, man. I'm going to say sit back, grab an extra piece of leftover pecan pie from Thanksgiving, and look elsewhere.
Well, Justin, I'm going to say hold on to a second for grabbing that piece of pecan pie, because I want to tell you that I'm going to take the other side of this argument here. Now, fair warning, I was much more bullish on this take prior to the news on the delay. But like you said, Justin, let's assume that Ingram and Dobbins are out. Now, I'm not saying that that is a sure thing, because anything in the NFL will tell you that they certainly haven't handled these COVID situations all that consistently. So I'm not saying that Ingram and Dobbins will definitely be out, but let's go with logic here and say that they are. This could go right, Justin, in so many ways, both in the short term and the long term. First, let's talk about this week. It's a run-first offense. It always is, and it will be for the near future. And keep in mind, so many fantasy teams are relying on unreliable options at running back right now. It is an absolute mess with the amount of committees that are out there. Give me Gus over many of the running backs below, like the RB15 rank this week. It's a great workload, and I don't want to overreact to a tough matchup. Now, the long term. Those claiming, you included, Justin, that the offense believes in Dobbins or Ingram when he comes back fully healthy aren't really watching, in my opinion. Gus was the first one out of the gate last week and is often the closer for this offense. This is a team hankering for a bruising downhill back to show up, and so far, it's been Gus whenever he's gotten a chance. I'm on the bus, Justin. It's 2020, and weirder things have happened.
Yeah, Corey, I could see both sides. I'm gonna lean against the matchup here against the Steelers, but I guess the one good thing that you could look at when you're looking at this matchup is that the last time the Ravens played the Steelers, now it was in Baltimore, the Ravens played pretty good running the ball. I mean, they rushed for about 200 yards and had a touchdown out there. So it's entirely possible that Gus Edwards could be an RB2, maybe even an RB1 this week, but I'm going to sway away from the matchup.
All right, Justin. Well, the good news is that we do these weekly shows, so we can revisit this and see who maybe had the right take on this, at least in the short term. And then obviously we could discuss if there's going to be a long-term situation here. That's a reminder to everyone. If you want to see next week's show, definitely make sure you subscribe to the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. But now, Justin, we're here to talk about the future. And there's one guy that you want to talk about who doesn't just have a future for the rest of this season, but has a future in the NFL probably. It wasn't looking good for a while, but what are you thinking now about the running back, Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, Corey, this Colts running back situation has been nearly impossible to figure out this whole season. Week in and week out, it could be Taylor, Hines, Wilkins. You just don't know. It feels like we go out and hail Wilkins the starter, and then Hines emerges. We dub Hines the starter, and then Taylor emerges. It's a revolving door, man, and Frank Reich has even come out and reiterated that that's been the plan all season. I don't see that really changing necessarily. But in Week 11, Taylor finally looked like an RB1. Now, granted, it was against one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL, but he had 114 scrimmage yards on an insane 25 total touches. Now, is this the kickstart that Taylor needs to fully take control of this backfield? I'm not sure, but if I own Taylor, I'm at least encouraged that they stuck with him this week. He gets Tennessee this next week, who have been very generous to running backs, and I think he may have re-entered the RB2 range in the RB2 conversation here, man. And the pieces are in place for Taylor to take hold of this backfield and run with it.
Oh, geez, Justin. I mean, doesn't this seem like a little bit of a trap? I mean, we've been falling for this all year with a bunch of different RB2s, RB3s. This seems really risky, but you're thinking you might be willing to buy into the fact that this is the Jonathan Taylor we've been expecting all year, huh?
Yeah, it seems like it just took him a little while to finally emerge, man. I mean, I don't know, right? I mean, we could be sitting here next week talking about this future segment here and talking about how Jordan Wilkins gets 100 total yards and a touchdown, or Raheem Hines gets 100 total yards and a touchdown. We just don't know, but, we both like Taylor coming out of college. He's a, all-purpose back, big size, 99th percentile speed score, comps to Zeke Elliott. I mean, if this guy's going to emerge, now's the time.
Yeah, Justin, we'll see how it works out. Well, with that being said, let's talk about one more situation that I got to ask. Do we got to get worried about here, Justin? Is is the situation getting really, really bad for Alvin Kamara here? Like, does Taysom Hill kill Kamara's season? Is this the beginning of the end to an incredible fantasy season for him? Is this new offense better catered to Latavius Murray? No, of course not, and stop it. Stop it, those of you who think that this is the beginning of the end to Alvin Kamara's season. This is 1 week. This is not a trend. Do not overreact. I'm putting my chips on him returning to a lovely stat line this week. I have nothing more to say about this other than anyone who's telling you to be very cautious with Alvin Kamara or sell him before your deadline, don't listen to them. They're trying to trick you. Alvin Kamara is still elite. This was just a bad luck game. He is still the most talented guy on that offense. Thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, don't overreact. The guy's too damn talented to not be a weekly fantasy winner from here on out. They talk a lot about how running quarterbacks don't check down to running backs all that often. Man, I don't care. Alvin Kamara is just a special kind of talent. He'll get back on track week 12 and forward.
Nice to see we have some common ground there, Justin and Alvin Kamara, if you weren't even considering it, of course, but don't listen to anyone who's telling you it's time to get nervous about that star fantasy running back. So there we go, Justin. That's our Week 12 show for the 2020 season. It's in the books. Next week, we'll continue our weekly seasonal episodes. We'll recap Week 12 and get you ready for Week 13. Now, please remember to subscribe and hit the bell. Download, follow, like, comment, whatever else you have to do to show some support. I'm Corey.
And I'm Justin.
And this has been the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. We'll see you next time. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Royalty-free music courtesy of Ben Sound. The views and opinions expressed on today's episode are that of the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. Remember to like and subscribe.